Hi, I'm Filemon Wolfram. In this episode of Urbanistica Podcast, we talked about the problem that people do not find their surroundings that they live in, the environment attractive, and what urban practitioners should do about this. Tune in.
Thank you so much for listening to Urbanistica Podcast. I am Mustafa Sharif, an urban planner, and you're more than welcome to join my big journey of exploring the making of smarter and more livable cities. Please don't forget to follow Urbanistica on the different social media platforms, and also let's connect on LinkedIn. Big thanks to Urbanistica podcast partner AFRY. AFRY is an international engineering and design company providing sustainable solutions in the fields of energy, industry, and infrastructure. Are you ready for a new episode? Let's go for it.
I have the pleasure to welcome our storyteller, Filemon, to Urbanistica Podcast. Hey, and welcome.
Hello, thank you for having me.
How are you doing?
I'm doing really great, thank you. It's so nice to be here in Pontevedra now, finally. I've been looking forward to being here for a long time. I had some up and downs on my way here. I came to Porto last week. I was supposed to take some time off and go surfing by myself there. But then my luggage got lost on the flight.
Oh no.
So I had to wear the same clothes that I was traveling in. And then I had to rent a wetsuit because all of my surfing stuff was there as well. I think the wetsuit has been peed in quite a few times. It was an old rental wetsuit. So
okay.
After that, I had to put on the same clothes that I've been flying in and
Again.
wearing them for a few days. But now I'm really happy to be here. I got my baggage.
Nice.
Some fresh clothes. I feel like a human being, like a person
welcome.
again.
Welcome back again.
Thank you.
You're our storyteller. How would you like to introduce yourself to our listeners and tell us what are you passionate about?
Yeah, so I work as an urban designer at Sweco in Helsinki in Finland. And I think my mission as an urban designer is very, very common. I like the usual story. I want to be able to create more people-friendly, like dense inner city, lively city spaces.
Mm-hmm. And like tell us more about your background, like where you study, where you're from originally as well.
Yeah, so I'm originally from Helsinki in Finland, but I studied in Stockholm at the Sustainable Urban Planning and Design program. I graduated 2 years ago, and then I moved back to Helsinki, and I've been based there now.
Yeah, and what kind of project you work with now?
As I've only been working for 2 years, I'm still kind of testing my wings, trying out different things. Because I wrote my master's thesis about placemaking, so that's been kind of a natural gateway into that world. So I think most of my projects has to do with facilitating placemaking processes, helping municipalities with that. But I'm still also doing like more traditional detailed planning and general planning. And I'm also doing some assessments of cultural and architectural environments to be used as a guideline on which environments or which buildings should be protected in the general plans.
Yeah. It's very interesting. And you wrote me on LinkedIn, right?
Yeah, I wrote you on LinkedIn.
And we talked about, okay, let's meet and talk. And then you had an interesting topic to talk about in this podcast. And I find it also interesting, like to talk about it and maybe raise awareness. So would you tell me about the background, why you choose this specific topic, like why you became interested in talking about this topic?
Yeah, I just happened to have some interesting discussions with a friend the other week about this. It's not something that I explicitly work with, but yeah, I can give you some background about it. So as my kind of passion or my ideal would be to create a more dense inner city kind of environment instead of like sprawling out suburbia. So I think there's basically two big reasons why this isn't happening right now. One of them is cars, and I don't really want to go into cars. That's a whole other story. But the other one is the kind of NIMBYism that it's a big movement. It has to do with people not finding modern architecture attractive. I think it's a very contested topic as well, because it's like this: what do the general public want, and what do architects want? And there's maybe not always, they're not meeting in the middle. I think the discussion about this is very often like kind of toxic. I follow these Facebook groups. I know you have them in Sweden as well. I follow the Finnish one mostly, like architectural rebellion, no more ugly gray boxes or whatever they're called. So just like, even if I find the discussion cultural around their kind of toxic, it often goes like into hating people. Even they kind of name names as well. But it's still a real issue that people don't find their surroundings, their the environment that they live in, that they don't find it attractive. And I think that's a big reason why if we're trying to do like densification projects or building new dense urban areas, there's a lot of people who don't want that.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking like, what if we would just kind of give up on some of these Puritan architectural ideals to build like this form follows functions, minimalist, modern architecture? And what would it be easier maybe to get these densification projects to go through if we would build more leaning into that nostalgic traditional architecture style?
When you say people think this, like the modern architecture is not attractive, from which point of view? Like the design or the function, or what's exactly?
Again, this is just like a Western European, Northern European perspective, but I know that there's a lot of hate toward modern architecture. I think that there's not a single thing that people would want to. Some people want to have architecture that looks like it was built in the early 1900s, like Jugend style. But some people think that in the Nordic countries, for example, that you should only build the traditional wooden single-family houses that have been painted red and a white fence around it. So I don't think there's like it's not a singular movement.
Yeah. So, from your opinion, so what kind of architecture and urban design should we aim for?
I'm not a proponent that says that architecture has stopped evolving. I think it's very good that it is evolving. And me personally, I would really like modern architecture to be able to still flourish and be built like it is built today. But the issue that I want to go into is that people do not find it attractive. And that is a real issue, regardless of what I feel personally.
Yeah. But how so like in order to solve this problem, like to change people's opinion, what should we do as urban practitioners, like as architects? Because then we make something is totally pointless or not attractive for people, and our aim is also a kind of building cities for people. No?
Yeah. That's a very good question. I actually want to give an example of what I mean.
Yeah.
I went last summer. I was interrailing, and I was between Lund and Malmö. I think there was a place called Jakriborg. I just found it to be a crazy place. Have you heard of it?
No, tell me.
So I think it was like in the 1990s when I think it's a private developer who got the idea that we should be building traditional architecture. And in the middle of nowhere, on just a field, they started building. I think they're still kind of building it, or at least it looks like it. But they just, on a field in the middle of nowhere, built a town that looks like a medieval town. They even have like a town wall around it.
Okay.
But it's very fascinating because the buildings actually look like they're 200, 300 years old, but they're built like 20 years ago. But it's also wild because it's in the middle of a field. So you would expect there to be like a river or the ocean or whatever. Yeah. So I have no idea. I haven't like looked at the reception, how the people who live there, if they like it. I don't know if there's been research done around it, but I think that it's a very, very curious idea because this has not been done to my knowledge in many places. So that's one interesting example of this.
And like back to the question about like how should we think, because as architects, urban designers, and urban practitioners, because we are doing or building cities that people not really attracted to.
Yeah.
So what are we missing, or what should we think about?
I think decoration. That's one thing that people are missing today. It's a lot of flat surfaces.
Like both in the facades and.
Yeah, the facades. Like for one example, if we're looking at these dense urban environments, there's like people usually get stuck up on the hyper densification and complain that this place has been built too densely for them. If it's a new built area, for example, in Helsinki, there's been 2 main inner city developments because we got a new industrial harbor. So there's two places in the where they could move away the old industrial harbor from the city center, and they build these very dense but modern areas. And I've seen so much criticism about these areas that it's hyper dense, it's too dense people, this is going to cause social issues and whatnot. But these same people, nobody's complaining that the old inner city that's built in the 1800s, the 1900s, that it's too dense, but that's even more dense. And nobody's complaining that Paris it's too dense, that Barcelona it's too dense, that Rome is too dense, because they still find it attractive. It's like exciting to walk around in these medieval city centers.
Yeah,
and that's the that's the core of the topic that I want to.
Yeah. Do you think that we are like too much control every like single millimeter in the city? Like too much of, we wanted everything to look perfect and everything should be like decided and so on, compared to like how the old cities grow?
Yeah, that's one way to look at it. But there's also, you can have like a grid pattern that's very logical, but at the same time you can have some sort of irregularities, and that's usually to do with like decorations of facades, or like you have to have some kind of chaos within that structure.
Yeah, like some actions.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because like I think in the end we are not robots that we are follow like a specific pattern.
Yes.
Even if like this grid makes sense, but still like you need also to have some kind of actions or some things happening.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And how like when you work with different projects, is there like a specific elements that you have in mind all the time you think about?
To be honest, the projects that I'm working with are mainly in smaller cities that have very different kind of problems to tackle with. But even there, I always try to make it as dense, as concentrated as possible, just because like I think it's technically superior. It's so much more space efficient to build different kind of urban functions in close proximity to each other.
Mm-hmm. What are like the challenges that you're facing as an urban designer in Finland?
I think it very much has to do with there being a gap between the professionals wanting to build dense urban environments and the general public being against that. It's kind of polarized between. There's like proponents for both sides.
Well, I mean, it's sad, no? Like
it is sad.
There is a
and
big gap between these two, like between the practitioners and people, civil people.
Yes, and as I obviously want to build cities for people, I want to take their opinions into account. But then there's also so much like technical stuff that goes behind the densification. Why it's good.
Exactly. Yeah. That maybe people not really understand or see. But do you think that we as urban practitioners are into our box and we are not really in touch with the public? That's why there is a gap between us.
There's definitely a gap, yeah. And also because it's already so polarized, we're like in these two different camps. So the discussion it's very, very difficult to have a reasonable grown-up discussion around it.
Yeah. So it's not like it's not only urban practitioners' mistake.
Not only, but yeah, we should be better for sure.
I think maybe there like should be some kind of a common ground, or let's say table to sit and to talk about like why is this good, why you hate it, why you don't like it, like just to talk, to have a conversation.
Exactly. Yes, it's just the danger is always that the conversation kind of goes off topic. It's
like
it's not only facts talking,
but then it's like it's hard.
It is very hard. Yeah,
it's really like, because what is the communication channel? I mean, like from urban, let's talk about Finland now.
Yeah. The problem is that there are also so many communication channels that aren't moderated at all, people talk in different kind of social media groups. That's like where a lot of people get their main information. If there's a new development projects coming into the city, then there might be like some very good information. The urban practitioners might have like given all of the reasons why we are doing it this way on, say, that might be on the city's websites or the city's official social media channels. But there might be these grassroots driven social media groups that spin the discussion in their own way, and then that's where maybe more people read that specific social media group.
Yeah,
and then they form their opinion based on.
It's so bad. So is the city doing something for this? I mean, because it's kind of bubbles, right? People within this bubble and having same opinion, and they are against like almost every development project's happening or densification project. Is the city doing something to make this better, to change the public opinion?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the city cannot go into moderating
no, of
social
course.
media platforms that they're not owning, but maybe the city is kind of seen as too rigid, too formal, too gray. That's why people don't hang out on the city's official channels. So I think they should be more fun, more open, like forget about being an official government.
Yeah. Like more, how to say, be a human, like leave your formality and just be like a human and to the street level.
Exactly, yes.
Mm-hmm. So like, if you will have like a magical tool to solve this or to bring the two opinions together, what do you think is the key for that?
I think that cities should, like, if they're talking about new urban development projects, that it's every single urban development project is a compromise. So instead of just explaining why this is good to do the project, they should maybe also give the other side of the story and then explain that, yeah, we know that this will cause this and these issues, but it's still necessary to do this because it's better for the entire government. And that could maybe make them seem more open about what they're doing.
And also realistic, no?
Realistic, yes.
Like telling both the plus and minus of this project and why. Not only talking, oh, this is good, this is good, this is good. Because we all know there is also the backside of every single development project.
Yes.
So yeah, if you have a magic tool, that will be like you talk about the project exactly how it is.
Yeah, that's my recommendation to every city.
Are you part like of also these discussions? Like, do you comments or no?
No, I don't really take part in them, but I follow them way too much for my own mental health and well-being. Because sometimes as I mentioned earlier, the discussion can get really toxic. The discussion culture around it are very, very often not moderated at all.
Okay, but is between urban practitioners are public on the same group or no? They are two different separated groups.
Most of the time, they're in like these mixed groups. That some of them are professionals, and then they argue against people who are not professionals, and
like a big fight.
Yeah, and I can get upset reading strangers argue over the internet. Like I'm not even taking part into the argument, but I just get upset for.
But do they use like a facts and say, yeah, we gonna develop so much, we're gonna provide so many houses or like units? Is the discussion more like based on the statistics and science, or not? Like just feeling, I hate this is bad.
The discussion ranges from every kind of topic and every kind of fact to another, but I think that the one big topic that cannot be really argued with facts in the same way is the taste of the architectural style. Like what kind of environments are pleasant to your eye, what kind of environments are
yeah,
nice
because
to
like
live in.
People think different, right?
People think
or experience
for sure.
Yeah. So, but I think in the same time, it's also good to have this kind of discussions. I mean, to make the city not stronger, but I mean, like having this kind of discussions is also important to see what we are lacking, what we need to do, what we need to improve, right?
Yeah.
If you understand me.
Yeah.
So like this kind of discussion also like healthy somehow, if it's maybe moderated in the right way.
Yeah. I'm pro moderation in these discussion platforms.
Yeah. How do you think is how do you think the good way of moderating this? Like, what is the best way to moderate this kind of discussions between the public and urban practitioners?
I think that you should have specific rules what you're allowed to use as basis for your argumentation. If it's something that's clearly lacking in evidence behind what you're saying, then those opinions should be regulated.
Okay. So it should be based on something from like evidence, as you say.
Yeah, and also if it's something that would be classified as hate speak, for example. That's...
like ban some words.
Yeah. I think like for example, in the Swedish architectural rebellion group, it's very often like personified in Gert Wienergård. And I think that's really horrible that they're going into like hating this one person in a group. I think that's like very bad taste.
So you think they are like people in this group are into a bubble and should really go out and like...
To a certain degree, yes. But then I also sympathize with the root issue that they don't find their environment attractive, which I think is a real issue regardless of how people talk about it or what kind of discourse culture there is around this topic.
Yeah. But then in the end, like let's say to close this discussion about this topic, who's responsible to fix this?
That is a very good question. I think it's in the best interest of the cities, the municipalities themselves. So that's why I would kind of put the responsibility on them. It might not be their fault from the very beginning, but I think that they're the ones holding the keys.
Yeah, it's like it's time to bring public and practitioners together and, okay, how do we fix our city?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, interesting. And like, tell me more about projects you work with in relation to placemaking.
We have one project that's finishing up right now in Kangasala. It's in the central parts of Finland. It's close to Tampere, which is the second city of Finland. So our mission was to kind of liven up their city center. They have very big development projects coming up in the coming years. So it's going to be a lot of construction work. And it also goes back into this like signaling the change to the public that something nice is happening. Yes, we know it's not going to be nice when we are building it. There's going to be a lot of noise. It's not going to look nice when it's like we're going to tear up your whole market square. So our job was to come up with some nice placemaking initiatives to liven up the public space in the short term, signal to inhabitants and that this is what we're doing, this is why we're doing it, and it's going to be nice, trust us.
Yeah. And how is the process? If you explain to our listeners, like how do you do that in Finland? Or specifically in this project?
Specifically in this project, we just tried to gather as much input from the citizens as possible. So it's not something that's being done at a consultant's desk in Helsinki. So we made like a gamification of the project. We made a little game of these placemaking initiatives, and then we went into the market square and asked passerbys to play the game. They had a certain amount of imaginary money to use on these placemaking initiatives, that which one of them would they pick and where would they be placing them, and then we use that input to give out the recommendations. To the city.
And is this the game or what is the game?
That was the game.
This is the game, like with the money and choosing.
Like we gave them 10 golden coins, and then they had these cards that were like placemaking initiatives that cost specific amounts of golden coins, and then they were like, if I would be the mayor today,
so
I will invest the city's money into this.
And who is the group that participated in this game?
There was like a market event that day that when we went there. So there was just anybody who came into the market that day. I think there was a lot of families, a lot of parents with their children, a lot of elderly. Those were the main groups that we reached.
Yeah. And on this card, like, what do you have? What do you write?
Well, we used the typical ones like urban swings and urban farming, then like closing off city streets from cars at specific hours, and then we had this like trampolines inserted into the ground, skate parks, stuff like this.
Yeah. And what did people choose?
Kind of surprisingly, a pleasant surprise was that even if we kind of missed on the bit, like people aged between maybe 12 and 30, which I would say is like the core group of skateboarders. But there was a lot of even like senior citizens who came and were like, oh yeah, we definitely need more young people here. Like they bring so much life, even if they can be noisy sometimes. It's good to have them. So the skate park was like the main thing that was identified to be missing from there.
That's nice. And then what happened after like you collected the let's say people's opinion? You handed like what did you do after that?
Yeah, then we also obviously have to look into the realism of the land use planning in the city. Like where could you place these placemaking initiatives? And then we give out the recommendations of different spots that could be used for this based on land ownership, based on location wise, like noise levels, light levels, the ground, what the surface of the ground is.
Yeah.
And in the end, we gave a list of this that we would recommend the city to do all of these initiatives in these places, and this is an estimation of how much it would cost. And I think actually tonight my colleague is going to go into the municipality meeting to present this list to the politicians, and they're going to have a discussion with the politicians, like where is the city going to place their money in.
That's interesting. What is like the biggest challenge in this project?
One of the big challenges was to reach out to the group of ages between like 12 and 30. It's the one group of people that's kind of missing from the city center right now. So it was very difficult to try and reach out to these groups and to get them to come back into the city center. We kind of need their inputs. So what would make them come back here?
Mm-hmm. And what is the key, key of success in this project?
I think it was the participation process, like making the participation process fun enough that it cannot be just like a
boring one.
Yeah, like follow this link to fill in a questionnaire on the internet.
Yeah. So so you spend a lot of time on thinking about how to make it fun, right?
Yeah,
the participation.
Exactly.
How do you think? Because many of the listeners, they're also working on the same kind of project, like participation and community engagement. So how can we be extra innovative and funny in introducing this kind of participation? What do you call it? Participation activity or process?
Yeah, participation activity.
What did you do when you wanted to innovate?
I think the big innovation that we have was putting up 2 bowls of candy in front of our desk. And once we got the people to come in there to grab some candy, then we just like pulled their hand and we're like, okay, you have to play the game now. And
it's like, okay, so you use like candy as a... I mean, like, how did you come up with the game when you and your colleagues were thinking about a participation process? How did you come up with that? Okay, we should do the game. Do you have a device for us to think differently?
I think the design process of the implementation of the game was just like we knew that we needed to get some input from the citizens, and then we started thinking like what kind of input, what would be the ideal goal that we would get from the citizens. And then we realized that, okay, we want the citizens to actually pick which initiatives would suit their needs the best, what would make them spend more time in the city center. And then we just kind of went with that. How do we get people to give exact initiatives? And then we also wanted to have like kind of a heat map of places where they would like to spend more time if there would be some activities for them.
Interesting. And now we are here like during the placemaking week in Pontevedra. What are you going to do, and what are you looking forward to see, attend?
I'm going to attend as many like participatory workshops as possible, partially because I think that they're like usually fun and interesting, and the topics are very, very interesting, and I could learn a lot just from the substance of the workshops, but also because I want to get more, like see what my international colleagues, how they facilitate the workshop processes.
Yeah.
So not just the substance of what they're talking about, but also the facilitation of the workshops themselves. I think that's something that I'm going to take away from here.
And like because we are here as placemakers from different countries. You're from Finland, and it's nice to have you here. So what are your messages to Pontevedra? What should they think about when they develop the city?
Well, one thing for sure, because I arrived by bus from Porto, and when I got here, I think they should, like, it's a very nice city. The city center is super nice, but when you come here by bus, that's kind of like the port to the city, the first impression that the city gives to you, and the service design regarding that has really not been thought through. There was no like guides, like signs signaling you to go to the city center. There was also some accessibility issues because I had a big baggage with me, and I had to carry it up some stairs. I mean, there was some renovation projects going on as well, but even if it's just like temporarily inaccessible, it would be nice to at least have a sign to tell you which way to go to the city and make sure that it's easy to arrive, because that's going to be the first impression that Pontevedra gives to everybody.
Exactly. More like elements that they should think about when they develop the city.
One good thing is always like have more signs, guide people to where you want to show them.
Mm-hmm. And now we are in the end of this episode. 3 questions left, and the first one is about you giving a message to yourself.
Me giving a message to myself. I think one of my colleagues gave me a very good kind of a pep talk once, that I'm in the very early phases of my career, that I shouldn't take too much stress about like being the perfect ready-made placemaker right now, and it's a growing process. I just enjoy the ride, and you'll get there eventually.
Yeah, don't rush anything. Like it's a journey you make.
Yes, even if I don't feel like I've specialized in anything yet, because I'm still kind of shooting in all directions, trying my wings in different kind of projects, but it's a fun process as well.
I think it's fine. Like I'm also almost the same. Like now I'm working like for 4 years, and also like for the first 3 years I'm just trying every single project, like every single possible activity, just to see what I'm passionate about. So that's how you find out what are you really passionate about, and how you can make the biggest impact by trying different projects. Otherwise, like if you're stuck with one type of project, you don't know what's happening there. Maybe you like the other type of project more than what you do. It's always good that you try. It's like a food. These are like your top 3 favorite food. Let's say for me it's like kebab, falafel, and pizza. But I know that because I tried different food. And same with the project or work we do, is like you should try different kind of projects until you find like this is my top 3 kind of projects. So don't rush stuff, and it's always good to try different projects.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And the last question is going to be you asking it to us. So what is your question to me and to our listeners?
It's kind of a question / an advice for urban practitioners, that when you're working on your projects, I think a good guideline to keep in mind is to try and think from the perspective of the citizen, of an end user. Like if you would be living in close proximity to or using the urban development in your daily life, how would you like it to be made? And try to look at it from that perspective.
Yeah, very interesting. So thank you so much again for giving your time to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you so much for listening to Urbanistica Podcast. I hope you really enjoyed this episode. You learned something new and also got inspired by the guest. Don't forget to share the episode on your social media and recommend it to people you think they are really interested in this topic. Thank you so much again for giving your valuable time to Urbanistica Podcast. I am Mustafa Sharif. Keep up the good work. Keep loving cities.